Aloha, everyone. Welcome to the Aloha Friday Show, sponsored by the Sandwich Islands Social Network. You can find out all about the Sandwich Islands Social Network, lower right-hand corner of your screen. You can go to sandislands.org, sandislands.org, and learn about the work that we do here in Southern California and beyond. We're glad that you decided to join us on our Aloha Friday. And first of all, we'd like to thank Brittany Paiva. You can see her name on the upper left-hand corner of your screen for providing our theme music. Oh my goodness, she is such a talented ukulele player. Please download her music. Go to brittanypaivamusic.com or just Google her name and you'll find all of her information there. Thanks, Brittany. We appreciate you. Love you. And as we get started for our Aloha Friday show, we want to remind those of you living in Southern California, as you see on the screen, Kelly Boy DeLima and his ohana, Kapena, will be here this Sunday for a Father's Day concert, Sunday, June 15th. The festivities begin at 3. Kelly Boy comes on around 6 or so. There's going to be all kinds of music, special guests, good fun afternoon in Redondo at the Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center. You can call 949-886-5475 or just go to primoaloha.com. primoaloha.com to get tickets. I have the pleasure of emceeing the show with Kelly Boy and the gang. So we will see you on Sunday. You guys, welcome. Without further ado, I want to, and I'm so excited about this because I used to see him on TV. I heard about him. I used to watch his sportscast, all kinds of neat things. He was the voice of Rainbow Sports. And oh my goodness, he was so amazing. I loved his voice. And we get him here today. Please welcome to the Aloha Friday Show, Bob Hogue. What's up, Bob?
Aloha, Kabaka. Boy, just so glad to be here. This is a delight.
We're so special to have you come and visit us. You know what? Mahalo for accepting our invitation to come and talk story with us, guys. Just smokain vala'au right here on this Aloha Friday show. So let me see, Bob. You are in Sedona, Arizona.
Yes, up in the mountains of Red Rock Country. Beautiful, beautiful place. My wife and I retired here. I retired from a long list of many things that I did over the years a couple of years ago, and we would have loved to have retired in Hawaii, but we just didn't have the funds to do it. We love Hawaii. I just can't even tell you how much. My wife is from the islands as well, but ultimately we ended up here in Sedona, which we also love. The Red Rock Country is just beautiful. I go hiking here all the time. It's so picturesque. It's just a wonderful, wonderful place to live in the retirement years. And then, of course, we get back to the islands at least once a year.
Yeah. We were in Sedona not too long ago, and broke the eyeballs because the color, right? When the sun hits those mountains and those hills and all the layers of colors, it is overwhelming. We sat there, and as the sun moved, the colors changed on the mountains, on some of that red rock and blue rocks and different colors. If our friends, if you've not been to Sedona, and you live here on the continent, it's worth a road trip. We did that road trip and we stayed up there at the Grand, what was that? The Grand Sedona Pines.
Right around the corner from me.
Is that
I could throw a rock at Sedona Pines. That's how close it is. Goodness sakes. But
there?
it's such a magical place. Every day, I try to go hiking early in the morning. When it's warm like it is right now, or in the wintertime, right in the middle of the day. And you're right, the colors of the of the rocks here change. Sometimes they're kind of a copper color.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's a bright orange, or it's crimson. The light just makes it so special. And then there's this feeling in the air here. They talk about, the vortex or something like that. I don't know
Yeah.
whether there really is a vortex, but I will tell you that there is a spiritualness to Sedona.
Mhm.
And when you come here, you just get enveloped in just the wonderful feelings, much as you do in the islands. It's
Mhm.
it's 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 not only a place to live, but it's a state of mind. And I'm just I love the fact that I've had a chance in my life to live in the islands and now get a chance to live here.
Yeah. Let's see. We have some friends that have just dropped in. They want to say hello. Here's Lara. Lara says, "Happy Aloha Friday." Hi, Lara. Good.
Well, hi, Laura. How are you doing? Aloha to you.
uh, and,
Thank you for dropping by.
and there's Carly. She says,
Very,
"Happy
very
Aloha
good.
Friday." Kamaka, Bob,
Well,
and everyone. So nice.
all right. Aloha to Carly as well. That's great. Well, fantastic. I'm glad to hear that we've got people popping in. There you go.
Yeah, there's
Hey,
Kay
aloha
Bennett.
to Kay as well.
She says, "Haole Po'alima." That's a happy Friday. So
Yes, it is.
Kay
It's
Bennett,
Happy Aloha Friday.
Aloha Friday, indeed, indeed. So I'm told you were what, just a little tyke, 3, 4, 5 years old, the first time your parents took you to the islands, and you've got ohana that's there. So tell us a little bit about the family,
Right, right.
Bob.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to tell you a little bit about our background. My grandfather, Peter McLaughlin, moved to Hawaii from Scotland in 1924. He came
Wow,
over here to, it was a custom back then. This is kind of almost, there he is. There's Grandpa Peter. He lived to be 100 years old. Just a
wow,
remarkable man. And
wow.
he was an engineer that worked for Dole. And I'm proud to say that at his funeral that I got to speak at back in 1999. I had so many of the people who worked for him come forward and say that your grandpa was the nicest man that I've ever met.
Aw.
And he really was. That some of them called him Scotty. Some, he was Grandpa Peter, but just a wonderful man. And the custom back then was, this is kind of a somewhat of a British custom, is that his best friend had come to the islands to work, I think, for Honolulu Engine Works. He was an engineer. My grandfather was an engineer, young man, and then he came in the early 1920s, and then he sent for his betrothed. Back in the day, like you might be engaged for many years, and he so my grandfather, he escorted the bride to be, if you will, to Hawaii, and then they got married there. Those were you know Uncle and Auntie George and Nan Simpson, and then uh, my grandfather, Peter McLaughlin, he had to send for his betrothed. So that's my grandma Nan, and uh, and my grandfather, Uncle Bob, who ended up living in Hawaii as well. He was the escort to bring her all the way from Scotland. Think about that. It's halfway around the world.
Wow.
They would. My mother later made that trip, and my mother and her sisters were born in Hawaii in the late 20s and early 1930s. And they made the trip to Scotland. If you can imagine this, they went on a freighter across
Good.
the Pacific, a freighter. Okay. Yeah.
No,
They, they,
no, no,
they were
no
like, they were
jets.
like, yeah,
No
right,
jet
right.
plane. It's all,
Yeah. Yeah. Then through the Panama Canal,
yeah. Oh,
all the way to Scotland. I mean, this took like a few weeks, right? I think my mom said the whole thing took like 6 weeks. She was just a small girl. This is like 19. I wish I sent you the picture of this. They in their Oh, yeah, just wonderful stories. And then my mom actually ended up going to like first or second grade in Scotland, and
Oh, wow.
then they came back. This is right before the war, right?
Hmm.
And when they came back, they took a ship to, I believe, eh, uh, somewhere in Canada. So it would have been in Quebec, right? And then they took the Trans Canadian Railroad across Canada. And then my grandpa came up to Victoria, Canada. I
Hmm.
mean, think of just the arduousness of this back then
Yeah.
to travel. And they had to wait for the ship, to arrive, in Victoria. So they spent a little bit of time in Victoria. And my mom would always tell this wonderful story. Very, she was a very precocious young lady, and she would go, up and down the center aisles of the train, and at the time, typical youngster, even though she was born and raised in Hawaii, she um, because she'd been in Scotland for a year, she was now thick with the Scottish brogue, and she would go up and down. And so, the passengers all get to know her, and they said, "This little girl, she is such a storyteller. Do you know that she is telling everybody that she is from Hawaii? How can a Scottish girl be from Hawaii?" And my grandmother would say, "She is from Hawaii. She just happened to
Oh.
pick up the accent when she came through." But it was a delight. And then they sailed back to the islands. And as I
Wow.
mentioned, my grandparents and my mom and my aunties, they all grew up in Manoa. Mom went to Punahou, and Aunt Pat and Aunt Kathy went to Roosevelt. They're Rough Riders, just like you are.
Roosevelt. So
Oh,
here's your folks here.
that's
Uh,
right. My mom and dad. This
oh,
is this is when they came over to be married. My dad was from Arizona, and my mom from the islands. They went to Whittier College together. You can. I mean, my mom and dad. I'm going to proudly say this. They were good looking.
yeah.
Uh,
Well,
my dad looked like a movie star, and,
did.
my mom. Well, they got married at Central Union Church
Oh, wow.
in 1952,
Wow.
and then I was born a year later. They were teachers. My
Hmm.
dad had played football and baseball at Whittier College. Some may remember a very famous coach for the Los Angeles Rams and Washington Redskins named George Allen,
Hmm.
and he was my dad's coach, and then my dad actually was an assistant coach for him for one year. And George Allen coached not only football but baseball at
Wow.
Whittier College. This is the days before he, became an assistant with the Chicago Bears, and then he was a head coach for the Rams, and then the Washington Redskins. Just a wonderful man. But my parents were married there, and then came to Southern California, where I was born and raised, but spent a lot of small kid time in Hawaii.
Wow. So you're born in Whittier and you went to USC. And my goodness. So what were your early impressions or memories of when you small kid time as a preteen and a teenager going to the islands? Any recollections of
Oh,
places, people?
yes, absolutely. First time we came was 1956, when my sister was born. My mom had had some, challenges after I was born, and so they said, "Hey, let's not go through that. We'll go to Hawaii." When my younger sister, so we actually lived in Manoa for 4 months in 1956. Now think
Wow.
about it, and I still have some memories. These are my earliest memories of being, um, you know, j- literally two, then turning three. And because I can remember when I went back to the islands the next time, which was 1962, and we spent the summer there. um, all the smells came back to me. There's a sweet smell in Manoa. I think it's part, the plumeria, the pikaki, the rain, that would come, every morning, and then it would just be beautiful, and just that. Just the feeling that was in the air was like just an amazing feeling. And now when I come back to the islands with my wife Sherry, we comment on that. It's just this specialness that Hawaii has. And as a small boy, arriving at the airport, you walked out onto the tarmac. You were greeted with leis. I have memories of going with my grandparents down to the port of Honolulu to watch the ships come in or leave. Um, Watching the boys, diving in the water for the dimes that were thrown off, all the leis, the band. Oh, I'm chicken skin feeling, now just of being there for that. It was such a magical time. So this is the late '50s and early '60s.
Hmm.
Um, Another, great memory is my grandparents belonged, and I wish I could remember the name of it, but there was where Duke's is now. There was this like little beach club, and it was where, and if you can imagine, between the Moana and the Royal Hawaiian, it
Hmm.
was this small beach club where you would come down and you change into your beach clothes, and then you you go and run off into the water. And it wasn't like some. I don't want to make it sound like it was some exclusive club. I mean, that's just pretty much what you did. It was like you had a locker room there, and uh, and I remember going there, playing on the beach, being in the water, the warmth of the water there in Waikiki, playing with kids in the sand. Of course, in 1956, I think the Moana and the Royal Hawaiian might have been the only big hotels
Hmm.
that were around. By 1962, more of them had appeared. The next time I came was in 1960 65. I was there, and I was amazed, just in the early 60s, how much things have really started to change.
Yeah.
And then in the 70s came, and in the 80s, I finally ended up moving there. So, but there're just so many wonderful memories. Goodness sakes, just thinking about it, it makes me feel warm all over.
Um, my grandparents had pictures and of traveling on the Lurleen and the Matsonia that would come in. They would go up to Canada. They would go up to San Francisco on the Lurleen. And my aunt had Dora's Lay Stand, which was in Chinatown. She also had at the pier. She would go down with my cousins with the lays all on their arms, selling lays, right? And then the streamers coming from across the
Yes,
top,
yes.
right? And then the Royal Hawaiian Band. I had cousins that would also dance, and I was too much of a chicken to dive in. My cousins would be diving in after coins, but the harbor was clear. I mean, the water was clean, not like today. I wouldn't dive into that water now, but it was when you brought back all of the sounds of the Royal Hawaiian Band playing and all of that activity, and all of a sudden,
Remember, they the other thing they did was they stuffed the dimes into their pocket of their
yeah, yeah,
mouth.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You remember that? Yes,
it'll come
yeah,
out,
yeah.
it'll come out. And why I wanted to share that was about a year, maybe about 2 years ago. A young lady I met here, and her daughter's a hula dancer, and she came to me one day and she goes, "Kamaka, do you find any?" I came across a box. These were menus from the Matsonia, the dining room menus from the Matsonia and the Lurleen, with amazing artwork outside and
Yes.
all of. And I remember asking my granddad what escargot, what's it, what's an escargot, and he would
Yeah,
say,
that's right. What is that?
"Those are snails." I would go, "Snails."
Uh,
Ah! But that was fine dining on those ships, and that was the main mode of transportation until the jet age came in, and we were flying in
It
planes.
was,
So
in fact, it just reminds me that after my parents were married, they ended up, but their honeymoon was coming back across on the Lurleen,
wow.
back to California to, finish their senior year at Whittier, and
Wow.
my both my mom and dad said, you know, uh, it wasn't the greatest memory because it was stormy.
Oh yeah.
And they said they spent about half the time in the room because they were not feeling very good. But but still, I mean, just those magical days
Mm,
back then. It just, oh wow, it's just
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
wonderful to think that both of us have that common, memory of what it was like. And I
Mhm.
wish young people of today could have experienced, what it was like back then.
Yeah. Here's Carly, and Carly is all the way from Italy. She's saying ciao from
Wow.
Italia. Hey,
Ciao.
Carly. Welcome. Nice to have you drop in. Drop
Yeah.
in. Ciao. Here's a good buddy of mine, Marty Burns. Marty Burns is a retired high school football coach here in Southern
Really
California who has
great.
turned his passion for baking into a pop-up bakery called Broke the Mount Bakery, and he bakes some amazing mochi and cookies. And it's very dangerous to be around Marty because he's always
Mm.
got goodies. But Marty is saying, "Aloha, everyone! What's up, brother Marty?"
That is great.
Marty has a question here. I love it. Marty
Okay.
says, Whittier College poets George
Yes.
Allen finished up his career at Long Beach State, if my memory serves me right. Then
Yes.
Powell, the entire football program. Ooh.
Yes, in fact, so there's this little story that goes along with this that used to actually upset my dad very much.
Oh no.
Um, yes, oh yes, because uh, he would always talk about George Allen and what it meant to him and the whole bit. And my dad actually became like Marty, a high school football coach, and it was also a high school baseball coach. But in George Allen's final game, and you're right, they were ending the program because of Title IX, budget cuts and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But they won the game to finish with a winning season, and I believe it was Long Beach State had not had a winning season for a few years, and so it was really remarkable. And this was kind of the start of this tradition, which my dad absolutely despised, and that was it was like a cold day, either at the end of November or the beginning of December, and the players in their exuberance took the water bucket and they went and they dumped it, and on George, he was in his 70s. He'd come back out of retirement to be the coach there, and sadly, George Allen passed away a few weeks later. My dad was convinced that it was because of that.
Oh
The
no.
the family came out and said no, no, it was not. But it definitely
Uh-uh.
was something that bothered my dad. You couldn't convince him otherwise. And he said he loves that the players are exuberant and love their coach, but he did not like that tradition.
Oh. Oh, I see. Okay. So now comes um the adult Bob Hogue. He now uh,
Yeah, there's
uh
a small kid guy there, right there, with
there's
my
your small
sister Patty and
kids,
my brother Don, mom and dad.
and there's mom and dad. Okay. And then comes uh into your life this lovely lady. Um
Yes, yes. Sherry, my beloved Sherry, who's also a child of the islands. She grew up in Eva Beach and Hawaii Kai and Mililani, and this is kind of an interesting story. There, when I was like 11 and she would have been about 8, she spent a lot of time at that time at her aunt's house in Waikiki.
Ah,
And her aunt ran a little hotel that was on Alawai. In fact, the building is still there.
wow.
And so so during this time, Sherry was a little precocious young lady, and she would help her auntie, and by playing with the kids that were there, with their parents, or she would go and help decorate the rooms and all this kind of stuff. So the reason why I'm telling you this story is that she was in Waikiki at this time, and during that summer, which I spent with my grandparents, there were a couple of days when I would go down to the beach in Waikiki, and as kids do, they befriend somebody on the beach. Well, I befriended this little girl, and we played, together, on the sand. I think one time we, got to, ride a surfboard, that kind of a thing. I mean, just become really fast friends. So years later, when we began dating in Hawaii, I told that story, and she said, I could have been that girl. I could have been that little girl. I remember playing, on the beach too. And so for all the right reasons, we believe that we really did meet, back then when we were small kid time.
Ah,
And she's my lovely bride, and I just love her so much. And we share this love of Hawaii. I mean, I can't tell you how much that both of us love Hawaii, and to think that we might have met when we were little kids.
that might have been that little girl. Might have been that
That's
little
right.
girl. Oh, goodness. Um, we notice that there is this leaning toward Hawaii, even though you're from Southern California, you went to USC. Um, you began uh, your broadcast career. How did that happen? How did you get, what was that
Yeah.
connection?
Well, I had probably the most drastic change. I graduated with a degree in business, emphasis in accounting, passed the CPA exam,
Ah,
worked for Price Waterhouse, and so I'm a young guy, and it just wasn't exciting enough for me.
uh-huh.
And it was a challenging job, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. A friend of mine, Steve Slagle, wonderful man, who had been my roommate, had gone to a broadcasting workshop in Los Angeles at a radio station there called KISS, KIIS. It's a well-known station in the LA area, and
Hmm.
they provided an opportunity for young people to learn broadcasting.
Ah,
And so I went there, and I remember when I met my counselor who was reviewing some of my work there. He says, "So what do you want to do?" A lot of people here, they want to become a DJ, they want to they want to do this, want to do that. And I said, you know, I'd like to be in television. I think I'd like to be a TV reporter. And I've never forgotten this, because the guy, he stepped back and he kind of gave me the once over. And
yeah.
he said, "Yeah, you've got the look." And of course, I didn't know what that meant. But I just thought, oh, he's affirming, what it is that I want to do.
Yeah.
And sure enough, when I was done there, on my, you know, after work, I sent out my resumes, and I'd had the opportunity uh, to meet a guy that had played ball with my dad, who had been a sportscaster in Phoenix, and we put together a tape of here I am, doing the news, or here I am doing the sports. And by this time, I had picked up a radio job in Prescott, Arizona. I know you've been to Prescott, Arizona,
I have.
and yeah, one wonderful summer of 1977. And on my like once a week, I would drive down to Phoenix, do this practice audition tape, The second one that I sent to Montana. And a guy called me up and said, I know you applied for the news reporter job, but we think you could be a great sportscaster. And of course, I was just thrilled. I was like, wow, all of a sudden, this is like the dream of my lifetime. I think I bounced off the ceiling, finding that out.
Yeah.
And I started as a sportscaster in 1977. And then the next year, I moved to Iowa.
Mm.
The interesting thing there in Iowa, I'm the sportscaster with a guy who had been a newscaster in Hawaii.
Huh.
And Harry Zahn was his name. Outstanding, may he rest in peace. He passed away from cancer a few years ago, but just a wonderful veteran newscaster. And he helped me so much in my early days there in Iowa. He had worked at KITV, Channel 4 in the islands, and in a kind of twist of fate, in Sioux City, Iowa, we were at KTIV. So it was a wonderful time there. And then I went on to broadcast University of Iowa games at KWWL in Waterloo, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. From there to Sacramento in my early 30s at KCRA. And then ultimately in 1988, I came to Hawaii, where I would spend the next 24 years, 12 of them at Channel 2 with Joe Moore. Great experience, great opportunity to live in Hawaii and just embrace the culture here.
Yeah. I'm loving it. We're going to take a little break, and we got a few messages we want to share. We have the pleasure of talking story with Bob Hogue, and we'll be right back after a few moments. If you just joined us, welcome to the Aloha Friday Show with the Sandwich Island Social Network. We're going to take one small time break, and we'll be right back. Hang in there, gang. Aloha, everybody. How's it? Aloha always, and Tasty Hawaiian presents Kapena in a Father's Day concert on Sunday, June 15th. Grab your tickets now at primoaloha.com. That's primoaloha.com, or call I let go see Kapena on Father's Day, June 15th. See you there.
Take a look at your screen. You might recognize this guy. Bob Hogue has been a household name in the islands for decades. He was a sportscaster, magazine columnist, a book author. He wears many hats, and most recently he's been the commissioner of the Pacific West Conference. Right now he's ready to retire, and KITV4's Diane Ako recaps his legacy and tells us how it's kept Bob Hogue aging well.
Many remember Bob Hogue delivering them their sports news every night. In the 80s and 90s, he was a KHON2 sportscaster and a play-by-play commentator for University of Hawaii and Hawaii Pacific University.
I covered professional athletics as well as college sports and sports all over the place, Super Bowls, you name it.
He was actually an accountant first before taking sportscasting jobs in Iowa, Arizona, Montana, California, and Hawaii. He left broadcasting in 2000 to serve as Hawaii State Senator for 6 years. Hogue somehow found time to write on the side. For more than 20 years, he penned a column for Midweek.
It was just so delightful to write for Midweek.
And authored a best-selling novel, The Sands of Lanikai. In 2007, he became commissioner of the Pacific West Conference.
I couldn't be more proud of what we've accomplished. It was literally on the precipice and turning it into the largest conference in the West region.
Hogue says staying positive is key.
Embracing life, and then also being flexible with things that happen in your life and turning them into a positive.
Former colleagues speak highly of Hogue.
He's made a lot of friends and knows a lot of people, and he's kind of what you see is what you get with Bob. He's a very, very friendly person, enjoys people, and that comes across when you talk to him. He's a really good guy.
Hogue has done so much already. Now what? He takes inspiration from his grandfather, Peter McLaughlin, who lived to 100.
If I could ever emulate him to his full life and also to his full age, that would be the greatest thing that I could ever have.
Bob, or Senator, or Commissioner Hogue, thank you so much for talking to us. You are truly an inspiration. For Aging Well, Diana Ko, KITV4 Island News.
Wow, that was what, 3 years ago.
Yeah, just 2 years ago, I retired. I was turned 70 in the summer of 2023, and that Diane did a beautiful story. That was just just make me feel so good, and to see my old colleague Jai Cunningham there, who's still anchoring the news. Goodness sakes, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
There's Marty. He says, I lived in Whittier for 25 years. I coached at California High School for 5 years. Marty was there.
Well, yeah, Cal
coaching.
High in Whittier. Marty may remember there was an old hospital there that is no longer around. I was born there, and then they tore it down. Murphy Hospital in downtown Whittier.
There's Johnny Rocks Hollywood. What's up, Johnny? He says aloha Friday. Johnny,
aloha.
Johnny lives on the island on Oahu as well. Lara says Waikiki Beach must have been very different when you and your wife played there. Yes.
Yeah. That is true. It was, in young kid. I'm trying to remember now the. Well, I can't think of the name, but we would go kind of body surfing, and depending on the way that the tide was, you could kind of like rub your belly against the rocks when you went over. I don't know whether that was the reef or what that was right there, but that was a wonderful place. There were still a lot of people that came to Hawaii. At that time, when we like to recall that my wife and I met as kids. that was after the jet age began. Oh my goodness, here's Jerry Weiss.
Jerry Weiss.
Oh my.
Aloha
Yeah,
from
good friend.
Iowa. Hawkeye fans here in the Midwest. Grew up with Bob broadcasting Hawkeye basketball. Aloha, Jerry.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Jerry's a wonderful Iowa fan, and we've talked many times via Facebook, and he remembers the days when I was broadcasting Lute Olson in the Iowa Hawkeye basketball team, Hayden Fry in the Iowa Hawkeye football team, Dan Gable, the Iowa wrestling team, just phenomenal things. It's interesting. There are other places around the United States that have the special feeling to them, and you wouldn't think that, like, you would say, wow, Hawaii and Iowa are a lot alike.
Yeah.
But the people of Hawaii and the people of Iowa are a lot alike. And, in Hawaii, we call it the aloha spirit. And in Iowa, it's the neighborly spirit. There's, Iowa Nice. They're really, really nice people. And I love the 5 years, I think almost 6 that I was in Iowa, and I still have very fond memories of that in the late 70s and early 80s. Great time to broadcast. So it's wonderful that Jerry has joined listening to the show a little bit.
Yeah, welcome, Jerry. I don't know if you know this guy, Don
Oh,
Hogue.
oh my goodness sakes, Don. Oh wow. Oh wow. I have to tell you that Don, um, he got all the looks in the family. He got all the brains.
Is that
He
right,
got all
Don?
the Yes, he got all the hair. Um, he got all the athletic talent. While I was sitting on the bench at USC, he was pitching at Stanford. This is like several years later. He goes on to become like an. I was telling my wife this just yesterday, where I was recounting. He became an ultra marathoner. That's
Oh
not
my,
just somebody that runs 26.2 miles, but these are like 50-mile
50.
races,
Yeah.
100-mile races. And
Wow.
he still, to this day, he's out there. I think last year he ran like 2,000 miles in the year. Now, I want you to think about that. That means he has to average 5 or 6 miles a day. So, Brother Don, love you very much. I'm delighted that you joined us here and then step back and wonderful memories. That's great. I love it.
Okay. Don, I gotta sit down. Well, I am sitting down after how many miles? That's that's
Uh,
amazing. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah.
You mentioned a couple of names that struck just that the memories over here.
Oh,
Mr.
there's me and Joe.
Joe Moore. Oh my goodness. Uh, Used to watch Joe Moore religiously with Bob Hogue, our recording of sports.
Yeah,
My goodness.
yeah. Joe, people talk about, some of the extra things that I do, but I mean, what a talent that Joe is. He started as a sportscaster and then has become one of the longest serving anchormen in the entire United States. Phenomenal ratings throughout his career. And look at the plays that he's done. I think he's got something coming up with Pat Sajak, again this summer, and it was so wonderful. After we worked together for like 12 years, and great rapport, wonderful man to work with. And then, I left Channel 2 and went into the state legislature. Joe and I still kept contact, even if it was just like through Facebook. And just this past year, we got together, and we went down to the outrigger, and my wife Sherry and his wife Teresa, and it was just as if we hadn't skipped a beat, and we hadn't seen each other, in more than 20 years.
Yeah.
And so just wonderful, to work with him, and to experience some of the great things that he's done.
Yeah. I saw this picture, Super Bowl.
Yeah,
This was Stanford. Um,
yeah, that was a great comeback game. Um, Joe Montana. That was at Stanford Stadium.
yeah.
It was the first of four straight Super Bowls that I got to cover, and the San Francisco 49ers came from behind and played as perfect of a second half as you can play. In fact, I think that season they only lost once. And I was right in the middle. People used to say that I was a very enthusiastic sportscaster, and that is true. And I was very enthusiastically delivering my final stand up there. You can see them celebrating out on the field. Those were the Super Bowl over the years has become. Boy, let's say it this way. Back then, it was much more informal. Okay,
Okay.
as sportscasters, you could go down on the field. You could mingle with the players. I could remember, covering the Chicago Bears in the phenomenal year when the Bears won the Super Bowl in New Orleans, and I'm there. I am at O'Malley's, and I'm sitting at the same table as Jim McMahon and Jim Plunkett, who's being honored, during a halftime ceremony is just down the other way. It was a different time back then. It was a wonderful time to be a sportscaster, and it was wonderful to cover those games. Wow, just what an honor! I covered Super Bowls with the 49ers and the Dolphins, the Bears and the Patriots, the Broncos and the Giants, and also the Broncos and the Redskins. So four straight Super Bowls, and then I left Sacramento to come to Hawaii in 1988. So and got to do a lot of wonderful things there as well.
Marty says, in my opinion, Jesse Sapolu is one of the most celebrated athletes out of Hawaii. When we talk Hawaii sports, I always give props to my brother Jesse.
And that is true. You know what? If there was a Mount Rushmore of Hawaii football players, Jesse Sapolu would be up there. And just a wonderful man. We all know his legacy with the San Francisco 49ers, and he has stayed involved in sports. And he not only loves sports, but he supports young athletes as well. And Jesse Sapolu, he's a rock in my mind.
We had Jesse Sapolu on the Aloha Friday show, and indeed, a humble, soft-spoken, very, very well respected in the community, and rightly so. And we talked about the Polynesian Football Hall of Fame, and his involvement there down in Laia and stuff. Here's Nate Jones. Nate Jones is production assistant for the Sandwich Island Social Network Aloha Friday show. Thank you, Nate, for all that you do. Nate is the magician behind the scenes that helps make the Aloha Friday show happen. He says, Aloha Bob, glad to have you on. Were you in Hawaii when UH football beat 9th-ranked Iowa in '88 on Jason Elam's field goal? I know you were there when Iowa came down, and UH played a tight game with them during the Rainbow Classic in basketball.
Yeah, in fact, I was interviewing for the Channel 2 job the week that Hawaii played Iowa there in 1988, and there was big things expected of Iowa, and Hawaii was an underdog. It was virtually a sellout. If it wasn't a sellout, it was very close to it. It was just it was absolutely a madhouse at Aloha Stadium, and there was kind of an expectation that probably this game was going to end up going Iowa's way. Well, it didn't. And in the fourth quarter, Hawaii just made all the plays, and Jason Elam, kicked the winning field goal. There were people that were just running around, hugging and screaming. It was absolutely it was a bedlam, and it was my introduction to the University of Hawaii football. And I was fortunate enough to, get the job offer, and later that month I started on the air at Channel 2. So it was kind of a baptism, under fire. And those were incredible days. That 1988 team was outstanding. The next year, Hawaii fans will remember that we finally beat BYU. And just in that, phenomenal, I think it was 52-14. It was just 56-14. And I can still see Jamal Farmer taking the swing pass from Garrett Gabriel and going down the field with Leo Goes leading the way, and it was just an incredible experience. Hawaii ended up playing in the Aloha Bowl in that 1989 season. The next year we beat Ty Detmer, 59-28 game on the day that Ty Detmer won the Heisman Trophy. And these were days when there were huge crowds at Hawaii football games. And then, of course, there were the lean years after that, and then June Jones came in, and we had Chad Owens, Mighty Mouse, and Timmy Chang, and goodness sake, Rolovich, and Colt Brennan, and I mean, those were incredible days. They didn't have the crowds as much at that time, but the bedlam was still there.
Yeah, Jerry Weiss says also an Hawaii connection with Stan Sheriff. He was the athletic director of Northern Iowa 70 to 83, and then UH 83 to 93. Yes.
Well, and then, okay,
Yes.
Stan Sheriff was my second father.
Oh my.
And I absolutely love that man. I did the Stan Sheriff show. He was the football coach and athletic director at the University of Northern Iowa. I used to play basketball there every day, and just it was a wonderful place. And then Stan left to go to Hawaii. Ironically, at that time, we didn't talk about his connection to Hawaii. I found out about it after the fact, and he had lived as a youngster in Hawaii, and but he, like me, had always had this love of the islands, and so he was hired. I remember he was kind of he expressed to me his frustration with how long the process was taking in Hawaii. And I learned later, living in Hawaii, that's called Hawaii time. But Stan, I contacted Stan in 1988 when I was trying to get a job with Channel 2, and I asked him if he could make a phone call or write a letter on my behalf, and he said he would see what he could do. And so and then I wasn't sure if he followed through or not, but I found out in the interview process that he had, and he'd said a nice word to the general manager, and perhaps his good word was the one that put me over the top. And I really love Stan Sheriff, and we lost him too soon, but his legacy continues on with the naming of the arena for him, and we remember all of his great work, and to think that I was able to go back with him, and in his Iowa days, and then follow through in his Hawaii days. That's really something.
Wow, very special. Oh my goodness. I can't believe we've spent almost an hour together. The time go by so quick there when us guys just
Yes.
talk story.
Yes. Yeah, you're wonderful. You're wonderful, by the way. You're putting up with me just going on and on and on.
No, I love it. You know what? I am enjoying it. I just, because you and I have that same generation, and my memories of growing up in Hawaii are very similar to yours. And talking about all of those things that are happening, I'm just soaking it in, enjoying it, Bob. And thank you so much. Did not want to leave without calling attention to not only so wonderful in the world of sports, broadcasting, in the world. You spent your time as a senator representing Hawaii Nei, and so much of your time with Pac West, working with that conference and bringing it, and passing it off, much different than it was when you came on board. History attests to that. And any of our friends that want to look up Bob Hogue, go ahead and Google his name, and so much about his wonderful, wonderful energy and the talent he brought to the Pac West Conference over the years. And then, if that's not enough, he's also an author of a book called Sands of Lanikai. And tell us in a capsule, it is about the war years, Pearl Harbor, in the islands. What is this?
That's right. It's about December 1941. Little known. This is a historical fiction. On the cover there is Paul Sands, so he is the Sands of Lanikai, and that is his beloved Heilani. Little known story of what happened on the lead up to December 7th, and on December 7th, 1941, over on the windward side of the island, where there, now is Marine Corps Base Hawaii, and of course Kailua, Lanikai, and the stuff that went on in Bellows as well. So it's kind of a historical fiction, a little bit of romance and mystery, and I was very honored that it was a bestseller there in Hawaii in 2009 and 2010. I just happen to have a copy of the book right here that I have signed for you, Kamaka. So
Aw,
I just want to let you know I
thank
will be
you.
sending it to you here. I need to get your address,
Mahalo.
so I will send it
Mahalo.
there. And I wanted to announce here on this program.
Uh-oh.
So this is the bulletin. I told you
So
there was going to be a bulletin.
there's a bulletin.
That's right.
This was just handed to me by Bob Hogue.
I have just completed my second novel.
Oh, cool.
And it is it is a historical fiction about a family in Sedona, where I live right now.
Oh,
So it is a mixture also of of history, mystery, and romance, and an opportunity for your listeners to get the first copies when they roll off the press line,
sweet.
sometime in the next year. So you'll be looking for Bob Hogue's latest novel, Loves of Sedona. So
Loves of Sedona.
Loves of Sedona. The family is named Love, and
Oh,
so this will be a story of generations of a family from pioneer days to now. And just like Sands of Lanikai, I loved the research, studying about Hawaii and Kailua, and then putting the story together. I really fell in love with my characters, and I think the people that read it did as well. Similarly, the research in Sedona was just a labor of love, and I've loved writing it, and I'm tearing up now because I love my characters.
ah,
And one of the neatest things is, I've had a couple of people already read the first draft, and they've
mm,
told me how much they've enjoyed it. My wife is reading it for the second time,
wow.
and she'll call me into the bedroom and she's crying. This is so beautiful, and
Ah,
so I believe in sportscaster vernacular. Um, I've hit a home run, and
sweet.
I hope that people will get a chance to enjoy Loves of Sedona when it comes out either later this year or next year. So that's the bulletin for today.
You heard it here first by George or by Bob.
By Bob.
You can pick up Sands of Lanikai on Amazon. You can go to Amazon.com and order Bob's book. We'd like you to go ahead and do that. Um, I was thinking of writing a book, Plate Lunches of Sedona. It'd only be
I
one
love it.
page. It'd only be one page because when you open the book, Plate Lunches of Sedona, it says, please drive to Prescott. Um, and and see my brother Ron, who has a Hawaiian food truck in Prescott. It's about an hour drive or so. You can go to
It
Prescott.
is.
uh,
I've seen his place along the side of the road. It's
There you
wonderful.
go. And he is a local brother from Maui, and he has the only Hawaiian food truck in Prescott. And so go say how's it, brother Ron Sorrell over there. So shout out to brother Ron, also who's one of the supporters and great folks that help us here at the San Marjala Social Network as well. Bob, what a pleasure to spend some time with you. Mahalo. It's been a real treat. And let me see, we have a couple folks that just want to say over here. Marty Burns says, "Awesome interview, mahalo, thank you."
Mahalo.
Oh, so good. There's Jerry. Oh my, great interview, mahalo, Jerry.
Oh
So
my.
sweet. So Kay Bennett, my other half, she says we're due another trip to Sedona next year. We should all have cow together. Hey, we should do that.
Yes, 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 yes.
We get to Sedona and we stay over at the Pines. We're gonna give you a call. Say, hey, we're gonna eat Hawaiian food.
Yes.
uh, and let me see. One more over here that says, uh, "Ah, yours is a blessed interview.
I feel
Amazing.
very
I mean,
blessed to be here.
so nice. Um, Again, big mahalo nui loa, Bob. Thank you so much. Regards to your ohana, to your lovely wife, and to all of our folks that dropped into the Aloha Friday show. Mahalo nui. Thank you so much for all of your kind comments. And if I missed you, e kalamai, sorry. I know I should get that extra. You know, they have the extra arm at the swap meet at the Aloha State. I should have got that extra arm to do all of that. But Kalamai, if I missed your comments, thank you so much. We'll see you next time on the Aloha Friday show. Until then, we'll say ahui ho and blessings to everybody. Ahui ho, everybody.
Aloha.
Thank you.